The avoidant's inflated ego is their greatest obstacle to genuine love, and the primary barrier preventing them from appreciating what you offer. Their sense of superiority, emotional invincibility, and belief that they're the prize everyone should compete for must be systematically dismantled before they can access their capacity for authentic connection. This isn't about cruelty, it's about psychological necessity. Their ego destruction is the prerequisite for their emotional evolution. Their ego is built on false superiority. Avoidants have constructed their entire identity around being emotionally superior to people who need love, connection, and validation. They see themselves as evolved beings who've transcended ordinary human needs, while viewing emotionally expressive people as weak, needy, and beneath their sophisticated detachment. This false superiority must be shattered because it prevents them from recognizing your value or their own need for the love you're offering. As long as they believe they're operating on a higher emotional plane than you, they can't see you as an equal worthy of their genuine investment or vulnerability. The ego destruction process forces them to confront that their emotional unavailability isn't wisdom or strength, it's damage and limitation. They must face the reality that their patterns aren't sophisticated relationship management, but primitive defense mechanisms that keep them isolated and unfulfilled. Strip away their illusion of control. Their ego depends heavily on feeling like they control relationship dynamics through emotional withholding and strategic unavailability. This illusion of control must be completely destroyed by showing them they have no power over your emotional state, decisions, or level of investment in them. When you become genuinely indifferent to their approval, unimpressed by their mystique, and unaffected by their emotional games, their sense of control evaporates completely. They discover that all their perceived power was dependent on your willingness to be manipulated and controlled. This control loss is devastating to their ego because it reveals they were never actually powerful. They were just dealing with people who allowed themselves to be controlled. Your refusal to be influenced strips away their illusion of having special abilities to manage others through emotional manipulation. Expose their emotional neediness. Beneath their facade of independence lies desperate neediness that must be exposed and acknowledged before genuine connection becomes possible. Their ego protects them from facing how much they actually need validation, attention, and love from others, particularly from you. This exposure happens when you withdraw the emotional supply they've become dependent on, while maintaining your own emotional stability. They discover they can't function normally without the attention and validation you are providing, revealing their hidden dependency on exactly what they claim not to need. The ego destruction forces them to confront their own emotional poverty and neediness, which shatters their self-image as someone who's above requiring care and connection from others. They must face their authentic human needs before they can appreciate your willingness to meet those needs. Destroy their sense of specialness. Avoidants believe they're uniquely complex, mysteriously attractive, and inherently more interesting than ordinary people. This sense of specialness must be systematically destroyed by treating them like everyone else, rather than accommodating their need to feel exceptional and different. When you stop being impressed by their emotional unavailability, stop finding their mixed signals intriguing, and stop treating their attention like a precious gift, their specialness evaporates. They realize they're not mysterious and fascinating. They're just emotionally stunted people with predictable patterns. This destruction of their special status forces them to compete for your attention based on actual merit rather than manufactured scarcity. They must offer genuine value instead of relying on their perceived superiority to maintain your interest. Shatter their emotional invincibility. Their ego depends on believing they're emotionally invulnerable and incapable of being hurt by others. This invincibility complex must be destroyed by showing them they can be affected, hurt, and emotionally destabilized just like everyone else they've looked down upon. When your indifference creates genuine pain in them, when your withdrawal triggers their abandonment wounds, and when your lack of pursuit activates their insecurity, they discover they're not emotionally bulletproof. They're just as vulnerable as everyone else they've dismissed as weak. This shattering of their invincibility forces them to acknowledge their own emotional fragility and need for gentle treatment. They must face that they're not above being hurt before they can appreciate being loved carefully. expose their patterns as pathetic rather than powerful. Their ego frames their avoidant patterns as sophisticated emotional management and relationship expertise. This framing must be destroyed by revealing these patterns as what they actually are: pathetic attempts to avoid vulnerability that create nothing but isolation and missed opportunities. When you stop interpreting their behavior through the lens they prefer and start seeing it as the emotional dysfunction it actually is, their ego can no longer maintain its preferred narrative. They're forced to confront that their patterns aren't impressive or admirable, they're sad and limiting. This reframing destroys their ability to feel superior about their emotional unavailability and forces them to see their behavior as the problem it actually is, rather than the solution they've convinced themselves it represents. Force them to compete for your attention. Their ego has been built around being pursued and accommodated, rather than having to work for anyone's interest or approval. This dynamic must be reversed by making them compete for access to you, rather than automatically providing them with the attention they expect. When they have to prove their worth to maintain your interest, when they have to offer genuine value to earn your time, and when they have to work to keep you engaged, their ego's assumption of automatic desirability gets destroyed. This competition requirement forces them to develop actual relationship skills, rather than relying on their perceived specialness to maintain connections. They must learn to be worth choosing rather than assuming they're automatically the best option. The reconstruction phase. Once their ego is sufficiently destroyed, they become capable of building genuine self-worth based on authentic qualities rather than false superiority. They can finally see you clearly, appreciate your value, and recognize their need for the love you offer. The ego destruction isn't the end goal. It's the necessary demolition that must occur before healthy love can be constructed. They must be broken down to their authentic core before they can love authentically. Destroying their ego isn't cruelty. It's the surgery required to remove the psychological tumor that's been preventing them from accessing genuine love and connection. Their ego death is the prerequisite for their emotional rebirth.